Good morning, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I think maybe that was a school bell, I'm not sure. My name is Kathy White, and I'm a producer with Irving Community Television, and I'm thrilled to be a part of what's going on here this morning. We're doing a Zoom, which is not a Google Hangout, but we're doing a Zoom with art students throughout the Irving Independent School District. So give yourselves a hand, please. We've got some folks in the studio audience. And this is a part of Irving's Celebrating Irving, the History and the Man month-long activities. You can find out more about those activities at irvingheritage.com. We want to do a big thank you to the broadcast team at MacArthur High School. Let's do another round of applause, please. Thank you so much, Kate, for handling all the technology on Zoom today so that we can talk to the school district. And let's give another big round of applause to our special guest, Will Moses. So you've come to town because of a book, or actually two books. We learned that you illustrated two of Washington Irving's stories and got so excited about that, and I think it was Mary Higby that contacted you. Mary Higby is very active with the Irving Heritage Society, and voila, you're here. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in this whole thing?
Well, many years ago, when I was first offered the opportunity to illustrate the book, the one book that seemed to keep coming up over and over again was Washington Irving's Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And that was, of course, obviously the book we chose to go with. And it lent itself perfectly to the artwork that I do. And then, of course, the follow-on book, it was actually a couple books later, was the Rip Van Winkle book that Washington Irving wrote. So that's my connection to Washington Irving, other than the fact that he lives in New York State, or lived in New York State, where I live.
And not too far away, Tarrytown, New York, right?
Tarrytown is where Washington Irving at least had his home later years. I'm not sure where he was now.
And where are you?
We live in Eagle Bridge, New York, which is some distance away. It's a couple hundred miles away. It's a big state, so not as big as Texas.
Well, big as
I know.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Eagle Bridge, and if you guys can see these paintings behind us, these are, all three of these depict Eagle Bridge at various times in history, yes?
Well, this one not so much.
Okay.
This is more of the Hudson Valley, where Irving lived. In fact, this is an area a little bit north of Tarrytown, and that depicts that general sense of the Hudson River and the river traffic and so forth. That the maybe late 1800s, turn of the century time. Where I live, very rural. It's a farming community primarily. Rolling hills, 4 seasons. It's snowing there this morning. Everyone's complaining it's April and it's snowing and it's cold. So it's considerably different than urban. We have no 4-lane highways, we have no airport.
So it is very rural. I didn't have that in my head when you were describing it before.
Yeah.
So I want to direct everybody's attention to the painting that's on the other side of Will's shoulder over here. That's actually a painting of the farm.
That is, that's where I live.
Yeah. Can you tell them about it?
Yeah, this is a farm is a compilation of the way the farm used to be and the way the farm is today. One of the buildings that is in one of the farm buildings that is there in this painting is no longer there. It was taken away by a grass fire many years ago. But the other 2 barns are there and the house is there. And it's pretty much that way. At one time, you can see these funny looking cows in the front yard. They're Scotch Highland cattle. And for many years we've raised Scotch Highland cattle, and we have chickens and pigs, and we still have cows that are now and make maple syrup and so forth. And it's a nice place. We like it.
It sounds kind of nice, doesn't it? Isn't it great? So you are an artist and you have a working farm. So can I ask what a typical day is like for Will Moses?
Oh.
Do you paint every day?
I try to. I try to paint every day. years ago when I started doing this, that was one of the hardest things I had to learn was that I had to go do this every day. And so you aspiring artists, that may be the one true lesson to take away from today, is that if you're going to do this, it is work, and you have to show up and do it every day. You're your own boss, and oftentimes the distractions of life can take you away from your task, and that's the hard lesson to learn, and that's the one I have to overcome, I know that.
Well, it's good advice at any stage of life. I mean, it's one that I don't mind taking today for myself. So as we sort of move through this, do we have any questions that we want to get going with? Is there anybody that wants to ask a question now, and then I'll kind of try to pepper them throughout? Okay, I see some takers back there. March boldly forward here and come on up. And while you're coming up with your question, I want to take a minute to also say that we're here at the Irving Arts Center, which is such an incredible resource in our community. And throughout the month of April, you'll be able to see Will Moses' work here in the Dupree Lobby Gallery. Big thank you to the executive director here at the Irving Arts Center, Todd Hawkins, and to Marcy Inman, who is in charge of so many things that I can't even remember how long her title is. But thank you, Marcy. All righty, please tell us your name and give us your question.
Oh, my name is Jacob Haig, and I just have a question. Can I use my phone for this? Okay. How do you view your voice as an artist is exemplified within your works with the knowledge that they're very similar in style and subject to that of your predecessors in the genre?
Well, art is glacial. That's the way I approach it. The evolution of art, at least in my field, is pretty slow. And certainly Grandma Moses had her own style, her own characteristics, her own subject matter, color, all of that. And then when I started doing this, I started painting with my grandfather, Forrest Moses, and his art was different than Grandma Moses, but similar. If you looked at the two, you would say, well, there's obviously a connection there. And when I evolved into this role, I certainly recognized that the connection was there. And people would ask me, well, why do you paint this way? Why is it that you paint in the style of your grandmother and so forth? And in large part, I would always joke with them and say, I didn't know any better until it was too late. And there's a lot of truth in that. That was really all the artwork I was ever exposed to as a child growing up. We did go to the Metropolitan and see the great masters and so forth. I saw the paintings that were on the living room wall, and that was one of the paintings of the grandmother, great-grandmother, and grandfather. So I think I'm in a way, follow on to what they did. I try to take the art in a different direction, in the sense of greater detail, a little more precision, certainly different colors than what I used. Trying to incorporate a sense of humor into the stories, oftentimes at least. And maybe a story or a sense of humor that only I understand or think I do. There is the connection. There's no getting around that. I've been doing this for a long time. Feel pretty confident that I've kind of cut my own path. And I'm okay with it. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great question, great thoughts. Okay.
I
so you have to realize that, and be aware of that, and understand that you need to have a business mind as well as a mind, an art mind. And the two aren't necessarily exclusive of each other. It's, you have to just be aware that takes some business courses, sure, you know, get a good liberal arts background, and you know, stay focused on what your main objective is. Will be fine.
Another question is, how did you keep your voice or your motivation to like stay fresh when you got designing the company?
Well, it is hard sometimes to, especially with book illustrations. It's a long process. From the time I get the go-ahead to start a book, for example, it's usually 6 and even sometimes 9 months of pretty much dedication to that task. That's a lot, at least for me. And to stay interested for that period of time, and oftentimes the artwork is repetitive in the sense that you're doing the same characters over and over again and so forth. That's hard to do. And again, sometimes you just have to buckle down and do it. Take a break every now and again and do something different. The Raining Cats and Dogs book that I did, that was the easiest one for me to do because every page was different. And whereas a book, one of the recent books that I did was The Fairies Tales for Little Folks. A lot of repetition, a lot of artwork, and that one, and trying to be doing repetition to try to make every page interesting can also be difficult. But you know, that's why you get paid to be an artist.
Thank you. Again, another great question. It all really sort of goes back to that friction that we talked about earlier between maintaining your creative, authentic voice and making sure that you have enough food to eat so that you are alive to maintain that voice.
Sure, it was always really important to me to be able to make a living doing this, and the world doesn't know me living, doesn't know anybody living, and I was fairly confident that I could do this, and I think confidence is a big part of this. That you have to have that confidence in your ability and in yourself to go forward. But always realize that it may not, just because you have confidence, you may have to change the game plan somewhere along the line. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to change your approach to things. If it isn't working, you know, go to a different door.
I hear folk that provide advice for everybody financially, that is wise to have multiple streams of income. Is that what you're doing with the farm and your art and the maple syrup? And is that kind of the philosophy, or is that what you've fallen into?
Well, I come from a very conservative background, financial. My grandmother, they always would joke about her that she could live on $5 a week and put 4 of it in the bank. And that was pretty much true. And so that was where I came from. And so yes, having different avenues of pursuit and so forth, things you can fall back on, that's always been there in my background. And if I couldn't paint, you know, somebody said, tomorrow you're done, then I certainly, you know, there's a lot of other things I could be doing. So.
Yeah. It's a different set of muscles, I think, that you have to be constantly aware of. And I guess you guys probably find this to be the case in school, because you want to paint or sculpt or, you know, work with clay, but you also have to have your part-time job maybe, or you certainly have to get the work done in your other, you know, school courses and everything. So you're learning already how to juggle these multiple balls, I'm thinking. Does it feel that way to you, that you are sort of constantly juggling the things that need to get done?
Oh yes, all the time. Yeah, no, I do a lot of different, I'm also a critical care EMT, I volunteer doing that. And you think, well, that doesn't really relate to art, but it is for me, it's a great adjunct to be able to get out and do something completely different than what I do. It also gets, you know, it shows you that the world, you see a lot of people who are really down in their luck, and they're having a bad time. And you say, how did they get there? Where did they go off the path? And, you know, my brother always said, a relative of ours, you know, he said that, say what you want about Tom, but he's, you know, he was always of value to show you what not to do. And that's an important lesson in life. You know, if you see people who are off the rails, figure out what it is that they did in their life to get there, and don't do it.
You know, that's very simple, straightforward advice, I would think.
It's very
and good advice.
Yeah.
Don't do that,
Yeah.
because that might hurt you.
Yeah.
So we have another question. Do we have any additional questions you guys want to bring up? Please do. As we're getting ready to do this, again, let me give you the website. That's irvingheritage.com if you want to know about the additional activities that are taking part. And if you want, I think there's still time to do a trivia team, isn't there? So, and this is so much fun, you guys. I have to tell you, there's a trivia contest. There's preliminaries that are on the 16th, and then the finals are on the 30th, and it's all about Irving history. And some clues might be even from what you're hearing here today. So think about it, all right?
What's your favorite part about being an artist?
Being responsible for myself, and I get to do what I want to do. It's as simple as that. I don't have to do it.
That's like the ultimate freedom.
Well, it is. I mean, there are limitations there, of course. So you still have to pay your taxes and do things like that. But if I can, my schedule is my schedule. I can do as I please. If I want to take a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can take a nap. And yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I just wanted to ask, where do you prefer to paint, like outside or in a studio?
No, I have a studio that I paint in. I've never really enjoyed painting outside at all. The insects and the dust and everything getting in the paint, it was always a problem. And so I'm in my little studio, and that's where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, it's beautiful to paint all these wonderful landscapes that you've got, but it's probably easier if you don't have to pick bugs out of the paint.
It is a lot easier. You know, occasionally I have ants come across, or but yeah, it's going outside is no fun.
So, if you would, sort of a word of advice for people who are coming to see the exhibit, because it will be up through the end of April, and you've got wonderful things here. Tell us a little bit about what folks can see.
Well, I think what I would like people to take away from this is there's actually a lot of work here, and it covers a fair time span of my life. I think it's probably artwork that's a little different than probably what you folks are used to. It's, I think, artwork that is primarily associated with the Northeast, and it is a fair representation in some cases of our terrain and so forth. And I hope you can someday come up to our neck of the woods and see what that's like. I think the artwork in general represents each painting should be telling you a story. I think if you look at it and take your time and go through it, you should be able to come away with a storyline. It may not be the same story as the next person who's in line, but I think that's the way to understand what it is I'm doing. You should be able to find a little humor, and hopefully it doesn't make you sad, it makes you happy.
They are happy pictures. They are. And even the one about sour grapes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a great illustration of a jar of sour grape jelly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's right there. You should take a minute and read that. That'll really brighten your day, I think. So I know that you guys had an opportunity to learn some more about Will and about his family legacy of art. Grandfather was an artist, great-grandmother was Grandma Moses. So we've all got an image in our heads of who Grandma Moses was as a sort of a national icon. Can you tell us about who she was as a person, that you actually were able to spend
Oh,
some
yeah,
time with her?
yeah. She was a character. Born, was it 1858? I think so, somewhere in there. She remembered when Lincoln was shot. I mean, that was, I think about that every now and again. I knew somebody who remembered when Lincoln was shot. She was, 5 or 6 years old when the word came down that he'd been killed. And she lived a hard life most of her days, and she was not bitter about it. She started working, dropped out of school when she was 12, which wasn't that uncommon back then. Went to work as a hired, what they call a hired girl at the Vandenberg farm, actually not too far from where I live. And grew into a beautiful young woman and married my great-grandfather and got on a train and moved to Virginia. And that was at a time when she talked about going by fields that were not plowed. And the reason they weren't plowed is because of all the dead soldiers that were out there in the Civil War. So, that gives you a sense of her background. She lived in Virginia until about 1905, early 1900s, and then moved back north. Put all the cows and the furniture on a train and chickens, and came back north. And they bought a farm where I live, this one here, and grew up there. Her husband Thomas died in 1927, and I don't know how old she was at that point. She was a fairly old lady, but she was somebody who always felt she needed to be useful. And this was at a time when people didn't retire and move to Florida like they do today. This is a time where you stayed with your family, and she did. But she really felt the need to continue to contribute and be useful. And that she did. She started in first doing, it was like form a needlepoint called crewel work. And that was more of a hobby, but then she evolved into painting as arthritis became a factor, and then her paintings started to become a little bit popular, and she started to sell these paintings for, $10, $12, and so forth. And as long as she was contributing, she felt the need to, felt good about life, I think. And that's what drove her on. Her popularity picked up. She became, a phenomenon back in the 1950s, 1960s. And she lived to be about 102. And I think the rationale or the reason for that, in large part, was that she had something to do. She felt like she was contributing and had something to do. So she painted right to the bitter end, and that's the Grandma Moses story.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. She sounds like, as you said, a character. She also sounds like a pretty formidable woman.
She was.
Yeah.
She could be stern.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Was she your inspiration for the rolling pin? Just ask.
No. She wasn't stern in that way. She had just a quiet strength that, no one challenged.
Which is even scarier.
Yeah. That was a.
So one of the stories that Will shared with us yesterday was actually going into, it wasn't the studio, it was the laundry room, right? To paint with Grandma Moses when he was a little boy.
Yeah. She built a new house for herself, a one-story house, when she was about 93, 94 years old. And part of that was that she had a studio built there. the studio. And so she wound up going to the laundry room, and it was off the kitchen. And that's where she painted. She had the washer, dryer, and the paint table, and she would sit in there and paint her paintings. And as little kids, we would always go there and get milk and cookies and so forth and watch her paint. And she was always very, very kind to us, and allowed us to watch her. And she would explain what she was doing with her paints and so forth. And then shoo us out the door.
That's lovely, it really is. So what a great memory you
Yeah.
have of your great-grandmother. So I think we're about to wrap, but before we do that, are there any questions from the schools, remote questions? I think I better ask that, all right, none? And if something comes up in the next 30 seconds, please just wave at me. Any more questions from you guys? Anything you're curious about? Okay, come on up.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Stephanie, and I'm used to working with oil paint on canvas, and how do you use that?
How do I do what?
How do you use oil paint on paper?
Oh, it's not that hard actually. What I usually do is you have to have a good grade of paper, a good stiff grade of paper that is hopefully acid-free and so forth. You want it to last. And simply put a gesso surface on the paper, and then maybe 1 or 2 coats, and then give it a light sanding with fine grit sandpaper. Not hard at all, just enough to kind of take the ridges out and so forth. And then just go ahead and paint. Works pretty well, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel.
Hey.
Through different avenues of success, do you ever feel like you lived in the shadow of your grandmother, and that was something that you had to overcome?
Oh, I think, yeah, sometimes there is that aspect to it. I kind of got over that a long time ago. What I do, and I don't think anyone, for the most part, it all comes down to making a living at doing this, and having a sense of self-assurance and so forth. I think I've probably always been self-assured, maybe too much so. But I guess my answer to that, my standard answer to that question, is that I never had anyone buy a painting for me because Grandma Moses was my grandmother. If anybody ever did, thinking that was an avenue to riches, I said, too bad for them.
Might not have been their best move.
Might not have been the thought move.
And thank you for your question.
Hi, my name is Tori. I just wanted to know what your process was for painting, if you had references for your paintings, or if you worked from your imagination or your memory, and if you did have references, did you go out and take the photographs, or did you like do sketches, or what's your process?
It's all of those things. And you have to draw on your experiences. You have to draw on your prior achievements, I think, what you've learned in the past. Certainly, what I know now is a lot greater than what I knew 25 years ago. But when I'm painting a painting, sometimes if I'm doing a commission painting, for example, a painting of someone is, gee, I want this particular subject, this painting looks like this. Sometimes I find that to be easier because, in a way, it's predetermined. I know what the outcome sort of needs to be. The harder one to do is just doing a painting for the sake of doing a painting. Sometimes that's more difficult because I really don't know who the audience is for that painting, and trying to think up, the layout of the painting, and the scale of the painting, the color palette of the painting. All of that can be a bit of a challenge, but I've found over the years it's best not to overthink it. That after a while, these things come
question. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. Thank you guys back at the school. So glad that you could be with us today on Zoom. Big thank you to the Irving Arts Center for hosting us today and for hosting this wonderful exhibit. Thank you to the Irving Heritage Society for putting together a month full of wonderful activities celebrating our town and our town's namesake, Washington Irving. And a huge thank you to Will Moses for traveling all the way to Texas and spending some time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.